Hi everyone, I'm Dan Kaplan with SC Magazine. Pleased to be joined today by Abe Kleinfeld, who is the CEO of nCircle, which is a IT risk and vulnerability management company based in San Francisco. Abe, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
We were talking off camera a little bit about why CSOs can't get the respect they might believe they deserve, and a lot of the times that's because they're unable to convey some of the performance and security context problems that they're facing to upper management. Why is that happening, and what can they do to resolve that?
Well, the reason it's happening is that the security issues that they deal with are very technical. And trying to communicate technology to non-technology professionals, who are the people that hold the budget, is very, very difficult. So what's missing really is a metrics language for CISOs that can communicate performance in the same way that a chief financial officer has a metrics language to communicate performance. So a chief financial officer, for example, can, in a couple of floors on an elevator pitch, actually explain how well the company is doing. Revenues are up by 10%, bookings are up by 5%, gross margins are staying stable. You could talk about inventory turns, whatever is important to the business. There's a language for communicating performance, and you get a clear sense very quickly as to how well you're doing. Are you getting better? Are you getting worse? And how do I compare to my peers? Because the measurements are exactly the same across all companies. Revenue is revenue is revenue. You actually can compare results. So what do chief security officers need? A metrics language to communicate performance.
And if they get that metrics language to communicate performance, what are some of the benefits they may reap?
Well, the benefits that they reap is they can actually start to put together SLAs, for example, on making sure that there's security in the organization. But one of the other big benefits they get is a clear way to communicate what happened in the case of a breach. By having a metrics language, you can actually point to the fact that at a minimum, we were protecting the organization well in all of these areas. And in fact, we are in the top 25% quartile of how well we're protecting the organization relative to our peers. So you can actually put context around it. But also when it comes time to gain budget, you now have context to be able to explain why you need to buy that DLP solution, or why you need to spend more money in vulnerability scanning, or why you need to do patch management more often, you need more resources for that. Because you can actually point to the fact that, compared to our peers, we're actually underperforming in these areas, or compared to the goals that we've set as an organization, we're underperforming in those areas.
Yeah, and like you said, if there's a breach, if there is downtime, conveying these metrics may save them a reprimand or even a firing.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
It's a critical component to actually maturing the security industry, and actually delivering on a promise of what a chief information security officer really is.
Mm-hmm. Let's move to a sector that probably doesn't have a chief security officer. That's small businesses, yep. But increasingly they have to think about security as we see compliance coming down the ladder, greeting them, as well as their preferred target by attackers. And a lot of big businesses are concerned with the doings of small businesses because they interact, they partner, and there's a lot of network connections there. So what are small businesses doing, and what do they need to do to improve their security?
Well, small businesses right now are basically using antivirus and firewalls, and that's what they think is security. But anybody outside of the small business world, as you move into the large organizations, know that that's maybe 5%, dealing with 5% of the problem. You need to be scanning regularly, you need to be patching regularly, you need to be doing a lot of other things in security to have a balanced security protective layer in the organization. And so small businesses today find it very difficult to even understand these things, number one, and number two, it's very expensive to do a lot of these things. So the technology has to change in order to enable small businesses to use it much more easily and to get the benefits. What's happening with small businesses though today is that compliance rate and regulation is starting to push down into these small businesses, and these small businesses are connecting to large corporations. So large corporations, as well as these compliance initiatives, are requiring small businesses to invest in these technologies. So there's a huge opportunity for technology to start moving down market, but it needs to be made very easy to use, it needs to be made very cost effective, and it needs to actually provide value to these organizations.
So that's what it's going to take, because Dan's Pizza Shop probably doesn't want to hear about anything they need to do to secure them. They just want to believe that if they use a vendor, or if they have their antivirus up, that they're going to be okay.
That's right. And we all know that the small businesses have become the low-hanging fruit for these hackers, and really for a broad range of exploits. And so large corporations are finding that they need to protect these small businesses because these small businesses connect into these large corporate networks.
Mm-hmm.
What we found is that computing in the last 10 years has changed dramatically over what happened in the 30 years prior to that. Before the last 10 years, pretty much all of IT was controlled centrally, and all of the computing resource was done inside of the IT organization. In the last 10 years, with outsourcing and with SaaS and with BYOD and with all of these kind of new technologies and all of this pressure to embrace the cloud and virtualization, what we're finding is that computing has left the building. It's no longer there. It's kind of like Elvis. And so what we're finding is that large organizations, big corporations, now have to compute anywhere, but have the responsibility to secure everywhere. Mm-hmm. And that's a dichotomy that requires new technologies to be deployed in order to be able to gain visibility into the security of these small organizations that are providing them services, be it outsourcers, be it potential acquisitions, be it home offices where 20% of the workforce is now working out of, be it small SaaS providers, or in the BYOD world where you have all these devices showing up and you don't have any visibility into them. So this is why the technology has to evolve very, very quickly in order to be able to provide that kind of visibility.
Yeah, well, I hope everyone can find their blue suede shoes, so to speak, and get secure. I'm not sure if that makes any sense, but hopefully small businesses will wake up to this and be able to apply some of the things you talked about. Abe Kleinfeld, CEO of nCircle, I appreciate you coming in and talking with us today.
Yep, thank you.